We're plugging into the rest of the world so that we don't have to plug into ourselves. I hadn't actually ever paid attention to how much energy I was giving social media. I looked at the time, 8 o'clock, and it was 11:30.
The whole irony of it is we tell ourselves we're switching off, but in reality, we're literally jacking ourselves with so many emotions.
Shame, guilt, and feeling not enough. That's literally all that you get. I didn't realize that doom scrolling was actually ruining my relationships. I honestly think I've trained myself to ignore really important things in life.
How are you making sure that whatever you're replacing that with is not also playing the same role?
Erika, that's an amazing question. And the answer to that is
I actually don't feel grounded enough to manifest right now. I feel really scattered in my mind, and that's because I haven't been creating that space. What does creating space feel like to you?
knowing what's wrong or having a PhD in your trauma and your bad patterns and bad habits means nothing. You got to change your behaviors. So I'm going to do the most radical thing ever that you can do, which is nothing. The house is quiet. What am I hearing now? I realize I have been running for myself. I think I've been outsourcing confirmation of my existence from everybody else. I've just been producing my life, and if people witnessed it, then I felt validated.
My value is in what I do. For me to just be and just exist, like I actually don't feel like that's enough.
I don't want to be somebody just on the shelf for everybody else to shop for. Right now, I'm really trying to encourage myself not to.
All right, balancers, welcome back to another episode of The Balance Theory. I am genuinely so excited for today's episode. I want to tell you guys a little bit about how today's episode came to be, because I'm actually not the type to spur of the moment, book something in and do it like within 2 days. But this one came to me. I was sitting with my best friend, Naila. She's been on the show before. In fact, our episode is one of our top 6. So if you haven't listened to that, I highly recommend you check it out. We were sitting down having dinner and we were talking about a moment in time that we're both going through at the moment. And I just thought to myself, there are so many other people going through this. Our conversation was so rich, it was so raw, and it was so authentic to the experience we're both having right now, which almost feels like a transition. We are rediscovering, reconnecting with ourselves, and also dealing with a little bit of, I guess, cloudedness or lack of clarity from the way we're conducting our time, and really just trying to move through and reground ourselves. And I just know that so many of us feel this way. I think when we're in this self-development space, when we're in this world, it often feels a little bit jarring. It's a bit uncomfortable to admit that sometimes you actually don't really know what you're doing, and life kind of feels completely unsure. But these are the moments where we really grow and learn about ourselves. And so joining me today to unpack this moment in time and just really have a beautiful, authentic conversation around this messy middle phase that we often don't get to hear a lot about is my beautiful friend, Naila. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. What a gift it is to be your friend, to be honest. Like picking you up and then just the conversations that we have, I genuinely feel like we always need a microphone. And that's a beautiful thing to have a friendship based on. Like, you really inspire me. So I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you for having me again.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's actually really nice that our friendship actually started that first time I invited you on the podcast. So that episode actually is the unfolding of the start of what has been like an almost 3-year friendship, which I'm so grateful for. I've actually met most of my friends in Dubai through having them on the show. It's just this feeling, right? When you sit with someone, you know that you have that spark. So very excited to have you back. Where I want to start today's conversation is where you're at. So I want to know what has pushed you lately in life to really start to think about your connection to yourself. Like, why has this come up for you now rather than been another passing thought that you sort of just let fly away to the side?
That's such a beautiful question. I think going back, I have been a content creator for about 13 years. So
One of the OGs.
Yeah, I guess. But that also means that I have been on the roller coaster of algorithms and feeds and changes in the apps and different apps coming up. And to be honest, it has been such a whirlwind. And I didn't even realize it until I got to the point where now I have a 5-year-old daughter. I'm a single mom. And there was this one pivotal moment that happened, which is the one that we talked about in the car, was I dropped my daughter off and she's going to be away with her dad for a month, which any mom that's listening would know how heartbreaking that is. I made a vow to myself that I'm going to use that time to actually do something good with my life. I'm going to focus on my podcast. I'm going to read books. I'm going to be trying to water this plant, this soul, empower myself and ground. And sure enough, the first day after I dropped her off, I hadn't actually ever paid attention to how much energy I was giving social media, how much of me was literally being spent just out freely to the world, to content, to reels, until that night I looked at the time and I had started looking at my phone at about 8 o'clock and it was 11:30. Time had literally warped. I had done nothing that night except for ingest and download a plethora of information. My body felt like it was flooded with neurochemicals that, like thousands of them, I don't even know what they were. I was like anxiety, fear, grief, comparison. There was a lot of guilt. There was a lot of shame. I'm not doing this. I should have been doing this. And that moment, that 11:30 p.m. last week was like, I am changing this. I cannot keep doing this. I'm changing it for me, but I'm also changing it for her. So the next few days, I deleted my Instagram. So I have over 1.2 million followers. And when I deleted it, I know a lot of people were texting me because they're like, oh, I can't, user not found. And people thought I was spiraling. People thought that I lost my marbles. And I'm like, no, I'm spiraling in the best way possible right now. The first day, I was like, this is day one. Let's see. This is going to be easy, right? Honestly, I did not realize how addicted I was to looking at content. I was just making myself breakfast, and in my head, I was already feeling guilt. Oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? What's my manager going to say? What are my followers going to say? People are thinking I'm crazy. What if I don't catch up on the trends and then I never know what to post? And all of these narratives were literally playing over and over and over again in my brain. My brain was trying to talk me back into that addiction. And then I had to step back even more and I was like, what is going on here? I think I've been outsourcing confirmation of my existence from everybody else, from posting, It's like, I'm like, I don't understand. I've just been producing my life. And if people witnessed it, then I felt validated. Then I felt, oh, yeah, I'm worth it. I exist, And now I made that decision that morning over those eggs. I was like watching my thoughts happen. I was like, I need to be the only witness to my life right now. I don't want to be somebody just on the shelf for everybody else to shop for. I'm going to make a change. And the change was I am ejecting from this because that's what works for me right now. I know it. My soul is yearning for it. And I'm going to go back into this quietness, into stillness. And so this is where I am right now. And it's honestly feels like a journey every day because it's just been a habit, right? I mean, I've been scrolling since before they made the word doom scrolling because it's like, I'm just paying attention to what's out there so I know what to post. And this is like the most dangerous excuse ever. The other thing that I noticed was, why have I been so busy? I was constantly kind of like wearing this like busyness as a costume, like I'm so busy. I got so much to do. My to-do list is really long, because, being busy is celebrated, right? Everybody's like, wow, look at this person. They're so busy. They got so much going on. And you kind of like put them on a pedestal, right? But I feel like there's busy and then there is running away from something. And for me personally, I feel like I was running away from things. I didn't really know what they were until I had that moment. I was like, okay, I have no phone. My daughter's not here. The house is quiet. This is crazy. What am I hearing now? And this is where the thoughts started to creep in and I realized I have been running from myself.
That's so powerful. Have you heard, just to your point about being busy, have you heard of that analogy of a hamster on a hamster wheel? It's making movement, but it's not going anywhere. And that's what busyness can feel sometimes. We fill our life with doing, but we confuse movement with progress, right? And sometimes it's not about the quantity of what we're doing. It is about that quality. But to loop back to everything you've just shared, getting very honest with ourselves about our relationship with social media, whether you create content or not, like we all consume content. Right? Whether it's Netflix, whether it's Instagram Reels, TikTok, whatever the medium is, we all consume content. And the problem is most of the time, I would actually bet money on the fact that most of us are using it as a distraction for something. Now, a classic one, because I was reflecting on this before our episode and off the back of our conversation. For me, it's like, you know what? I'm just switching off. I just need a bit of switch off. I've had a busy day. Like my mind is just everywhere. I just need some switch off. But the whole irony of it is such a crash course for your nervous system, for your mind. So we tell ourselves we're switching off, but in reality, we're literally jacking ourselves with so many emotions. From the big ones for me are comparison and guilt. You know, I'll see what a mum's feeding her 1-year-old day on a plate and see what the kid's eating. I'm like, oh my God, my daughter's not eating enough. Maybe I should make more muffins or do more or do more. It's always this feeling of like, I'm not doing enough. And it really amplifies that feeling. And so really thinking about your relationship with social media, I think, is a question everybody needs to sit very deeply with. And I think what you've done, actually remove it and see what the mind does, is very interesting, because it gets super creative to try and reroute you into doing the thing which is normal, right? It's just the neuro pathway is so strong. Every time maybe something comes up, it's like a fix, right? Just go on socials, or instead of sitting there in silence, we don't know how to sit there and be bored. It's a fix. We live in a world today where we are constantly getting information and data about our health, from blood tests, from our smart rings, our watches, our mattresses even. But all of these bits of information live siloed in their own app, in their own file. Imagine there was a way for us to see all of these things integrated in one place. Well, we don't have to imagine anymore, because a brand called Kinsen is finally making this possible. Kinsen is the first telemedicine platform to securely bring together health records from participating healthcare systems. And this is how it works. It basically pulls all your lab data, your wearable data, and lifestyle data in one central place. And this is actually something that you can take and give as a complete picture to your own healthcare providers. A friend of mine was only just telling me how amazing it was for the first time to actually see all her data in one central place and actually get the full picture and personalized recommendations. The platform comes with 24/7 messaging to licensed providers, easily connect your wearable data, your Apple Watch, your Oura Ring, etc. So your provider can also monitor your progress, not just your history, in real time. You can order lab testing through the platform and get a personalized health experience guided by real healthcare providers, all from the comfort of your home. With Kinsen, world-class care and cutting-edge treatments are now available to all our US-based listeners. Head to kinsen.com/balance theory to take a free quiz and discover solutions by guided healthcare professionals that are tailored to your unique biology. That's kinsyn.com/balance theory. And you can use promo code balance theory for 20% off your first subscription order. Thank you so much to Kinsen for making this type of access available in our world, and for being a sponsor of today's episode.
But just before we get back into the episode, I want to tell you about one more thing. You know, we've all had those moments where we really could have used some therapy. But these specific moments are generally not the ones you want to get dressed, get out of the house, go to someone's office and sit across from them in a chair. Sometimes you just really want to talk to someone from the comfort of your own home, in your trackies with your messy hair and your thoughts all over the place. I remember this one week when I was so burnt out and stressed. I knew I could have really used that kind of support. But for starters, I had no idea where to look. I mean, finding a good therapist online felt so overwhelming. And on top of that, I wanted to use my insurance, but I had no clue who would even accept it. Well, Ruler is doing things differently. Firstly, they partner with over 100 insurance plans, making the average copay just $15 per session. But depending on your benefits, your copay could be as little as $0 per session. Secondly, Ruler is not just matching you with the first available therapist. Ruler considers your goals, your preferences, and your background to provide you with a curated list of licensed in-network therapists who are actually aligned with what you need, which is music to my ears, because I genuinely know how much finding the right therapist can make all the difference to your experience. Plus, Ruler sticks with you throughout the whole process. They have true end-to-end care, all the way from finding the right therapist to helping you schedule appointments and checking in to make sure your care is actually helping you move forward. Thousands of people are already using Ruler to get affordable, high-quality therapy that's actually covered by insurance. Visit ruler.com/balance to get started. That's RULA.com/balance. You deserve mental health care that works with you and not against your budget. Thank you to Ruler for being a sponsor of today's show. Now let's get back into today's episode.
For you, what's been the most dangerous emotion or thought that you feel like it's been masking that you're now finally sitting with?
I wouldn't call it dangerous. I probably thought it was dangerous when I was in that switch off mentality, because look, when we say we're switching off, we're not really switching off. We're actually plugging into something completely different. We're actually plugging into more distraction. We're plugging into the rest of the world so that we don't have to plug into ourselves. And as time goes by where I don't have these apps on my phone and I'm kind of taking this like little break, I'm realizing that my survival mechanism was to distract and not allow my body to feel these things. So I was feeling a lot of grief. Like I needed to pull up a chair for grief. Let's sit with grief right now. I am really sad that my daughter is not with me. It's really hard as a single mom to give away your daughter for a month because that's how her dad's schedule is. And I'm like, I feel heartbroken right now. And that's probably what got me to sit on my phone for 3 hours, time warping, not even knowing what on earth just happened. So let's feel that for a little bit. Let me feel grief. And then there was a lot of shame of I'm not doing enough. So I was almost feeding that by watching other people do more, thinking, but it's okay because I'm now being inspired by watching them do more because later I will do more. So not only am I watching them, I'm also adding pressure to the pressure cooker. So there's like shame between I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough. Maybe if I watch what they're doing and then figure out a content plan where I can do the same, it's like literally having the hardest feelings are shame for me, shame, guilt, and feeling not enough. And that's literally all that you get when you look at other people doing things that you don't have the capacity for yet, or maybe you're just on a different path. So there is something so unhealthy there. The first thing that came to me was, I'm going to sit with this grief. And I cried. And I felt really sad. And you know what? The next morning, I actually had the best sleep of my life that night because there was no phone. I felt the sadness. I did feel grief. And I was like, I actually feel really relieved right now. And that's actually what switching off is. I think stillness, sometimes people think that stillness is like boring, you know, because when you're on your phone, you think, oh, I'm doing something, so I'm not bored, right? But actually, stillness is not boring. Stillness is actually a very intelligent way to clock into yourself and get in there and organize. You know, what's going on here? Let's observe these thoughts. What's going on? Get curious. Oh, wait, what are these thoughts about? What about that relationship that I haven't processed? You know, it's so easy to just be like, I'm over it, we're moving on. But there are things that are sitting there, they're getting buried, they're going more and more underground, and they will come up in the future. And like Joe Dispenza said, your thoughts will make you sick. I've literally felt that. I've felt sick to my stomach after a long day of just content consumption, watching everybody else in the world doing things, not looking inwards, not even feeling like, what am I feeling today? Where am I in the world right now? You feel sick, you know? And so right now, the biggest thing is I'm really trying to encourage myself not to run away. And it's hard because the thing is with content is sometimes, for example, when did I start skydiving? 9 years ago? So I've built an identity off of adrenaline. I've built an identity off of, you know, highs. So that's my identity now. If you go on Instagram, you see me skydiving. But I have changed so much since 9 years ago. I've changed every single day since 9 years ago until now. I don't know how many days that is, but I'm a different person now. Yet my algorithm is going to only encourage me to post skydiving stuff. Because when I post my thoughts or when I post a carousel about the shit that I'm going through right now, no one sees it. So I'm actually being conditioned to be a people pleaser. I'm being conditioned to stick to the identity that works for everybody else. I'm being conditioned into sameness. And one of the boldest things you can do, that's what we're going to tell our little girls, is the boldest thing you can do in this world is actually be authentic, be unmistakably yourself, because otherwise you just look like everyone else. And that's what you see on Instagram now, right? It's the same trending audio. Everybody's doing the same things, the same clips, hoping that they will fit in. But what they're actually doing is everybody's becoming diluted. So I got to that point where I'm like, okay, I still love skydiving, sure. I just had surgery. I've had a huge transformation after surgery. I realized, okay, I love it, but it's not my sole identity. And what started as trying to face my fears has now been like, I faced my fears. I've overcome something huge. Now I have other fears to face. Now I want to tackle motherhood in a way where, you know, I want to understand the psychology of parenting. I want to learn new things about how I can, you know, teach Callie to be the best version of herself as a little girl in Gen A or whatever gen she's going to be. So I want to kind of celebrate this transformation rather than just keep sticking to the identity that we built from the beginning.
I think that's so interesting to actually think about anyone that posts anything, right? You don't have to be a content creator, even if you're just sharing like personal things. Because I can honestly admit that looking at the metrics, right, looking at what works definitely skews me to be like, oh, I should post more of that type of content. But like you just said, it's really given me food for thought. You're literally curating your online persona based on what other people are telling you is working, rather than saying, hang on a minute, do I like posting this? Does this bring me joy to share? Is this what I want to show up as? Like, those questions are so important. But the way that the platform is orchestrated, the way that it works, really doesn't encourage you to do that either. And
Not
you
only-
become diluted, like you said.
Absolutely. And we're not meant to be curated, right? We were meant to be whole versions of just ourselves, but we've learned to be curated. And look, every social platform wants you to show up in a different way. TikTok wants you to be funny. Snapchat wants you to be impulsive and quick and, you know, post 11 to 20 times a day. Instagram, you got to try to be raw because right now this is what's trending, or you need to be polished, whatever it is. You're shape-shifting constantly to fit into these algorithms of these platforms. So what are you left with by the end of the day? And what shape are you? You're not supposed to be morphing into multiple different people every single day. It is a form, for me, it felt like a form of self-abandonment. I forgot who the hell I was because Instagram wants me to be this cool girl. I don't want to be the cool girl anymore. You know, I'm not cool. You know, I have really low moments and, you know, I feel like shit half the time and I'm trying to figure it out. I got to call Erika and be like, shit, today's really hard. Like, help me through this, you know? And I feel like, however, people don't see that, you know? So every platform wants you to show up in a different way, and it makes you completely put on a mask and shapeshift daily. And then your identity is like on this server, but like, where should your identity be? It should be here. Who are you? Like, it's so important to actually stop for a second and say, this is what I'm posting, right? Like, this is a good place to start. This is what I'm posting. This is what I post on TikTok, social, and Snapchat and whatever. But what do I actually feel I'm connected to, right? So for me right now, I love posting my daughter. I love posting our amazing trips together and sharing, like, you know, this was really hard with the tantrums and it's really difficult for me raising a 5-year-old on my own. And I want to share these messages. The algorithm doesn't like it, but I'm encouraging women to just kind of stick with it, because even if only 20 people see it rather than 1,000, I bet you're making more of an impact on those 20 people than the 1,000. So it's really important to kind of like check in and be like, what am I publicizing? And does this feel real to me? Because as somebody who's been doing it for 13 years, it catches up to you.
Yeah, and the speed at which things change, the speed at which we're growing as well, that question is important not just today, but on an ongoing basis. A few years ago, before I fell pregnant, I became obsessed with learning about all the swaps I could make in my home to make things a lot cleaner. And there are 2 swaps that are personally my favorite that I feel have made the most difference in my health and my life. The first one was investing in clean cookware. I genuinely spent hours of research, so I'm going to do you a favor and save you that time. I landed on a brand called Caraway. And 2 years on, their cookware is a huge part of my home and everyday life, which is why I'm so excited that today they are a sponsor of today's show. What I've loved using the most are the pans, because they're made with this non-toxic ceramic coating, so you can use really minimal oil and butter when you're cooking. Think like slide off the pan eggs, which also makes for extremely easy cleaning. Caraway is already used in more than 2.5 million homes, and with over 155,000 5-star ratings, it's clear I'm not the only one that loves Caraway in the home. So if you've been thinking about switching to clean cookware, now's actually a really great time, because right now you can save up to $230 on the 12-piece cookware set versus buying the products individually. And you can find even more set savings when you shop Caraway's full kitchenware collection. And right now, for a limited time, every dollar you spend on clean kitchenware gets you closer to your dream kitchen or $100,000 in cash. Visit carawayhome.com/balance to take an additional 10% off your next purchase. This deal is exclusive to our podcast listeners, so head to carawayhome.com/balance or use the code BALANCE at checkout for 10% off. As someone who genuinely used Caraway for many years before they became a sponsor of the show, this is such a dream collaboration. I hope you love it in your kitchen too, and thank you so much to Caraway for being a sponsor of the show today. Now, there is a second swap that I made more recently to make my home more clean, and it was prompted by this very simple question. If you wouldn't drink it, why would you shower in it? Now, I'm not saying you should drink your shower water, right? But hypothetically, it should be clean enough for you to be able to drink it. That would give me great comfort in the quality of my water. Our skin is our body's largest organ, and every day a lot of us are showering in water that we're fully absorbing, and it contains really detrimental things like chlorine and heavy minerals. The same water that we would not drink. Now, if you're a long-time listener of the show, you'll recognize this brand, AquaTrue. These guys have created AquaTrue Shower, a revolutionary shower head. It has an advanced 4-stage filtration that effectively filters harsh chemicals from your shower water. It uses KDF technology, which I've learned is a special copper zinc media that actually neutralizes chlorine the moment the water hits it. I love that it's not just effective at filtering contaminants, but it also has 4 spa-like settings from regular to mist, massage, and high pressure. I mean, you're telling me there's a massage setting and is better for my hair and skin? This one was a complete no-brainer clean swap for me and my family. My friends at AquaTrue are offering 20% off to all our listeners today with the promo code SHERIKA. Get this exclusive podcast-only offer now at aquatrue.com. That's AQUATRU.com, and use the promo code SHERIKA for 20% off. Your hair and skin, trust me, will thank you. Thank you so much to AquaTrue for being a sponsor of today's show. Now let's get back into the episode. We're going to talk in a minute about the things that we spoke about the other night, about how you and I are actually trying to create a little bit more space and moments of reflection practically, right? Because I always like making things very practical. I don't like just talking about things in like a fluffy concept. I really like making it, okay, this is what it actually looks like day to day. But before we get there, I want to ask you, as both a consumer and a creator, which every single person listening will be one or both of those things, do you think there's a reality where you can enjoy social media for what it is and be true and authentic to who you are? Or do you think that the way it's wired, you just don't see that fitting in to that equation of growth for you?
I absolutely think there is a way. But I think the beginning of that would be to first have a big detox and actually come back to yourself. Because in order to be able to experience social media for what it is and just use it as an opportunity, like for work, obviously we both use it for work, use it for opportunities for work, use it to connect to guests, use it to post, right? But you have to have some incredible self-discipline, and it is possible, right? For me, what it looks like right now, my map is I'm going to go detox first. And then I'm not going to go get a place, in Tibet and just like live like a monk, but, no social media forever. But I know now from the thoughts that have crept in once I've been doing this detox that this is serious and that this really requires some self-discipline. And discipline looks like internal strength. How can you be internally strong against this? Is you're like, I'm not going to look and see what everybody's doing so that I can feel shitty about myself. I'm going to admire 3 reels. Maybe I'll write down a couple ideas and I'm going to move on. I'm going to read a book. I've been carrying a book around with me, because it's an addiction, honestly. I'm in the elevator, I'm on my phone, right? I'm in the toilet, I'm on my phone, and have some other kind of outlet. And it's beautiful. Just carry a book around with you. It is hard. I'm not going to lie. We have been trained to get here. We're all doom scrolling, and it's my business. And I'm sitting here saying this, technically I should be obsessed with social media and be like, I'm on it all day long because I want to be successful. But that's not the life I want for myself. I've experienced the dark end of that. And I want to come back to my own peace And yeah, it's possible, of course. I would love to see what you're posting, but I'm going to limit this to, I'm going to watch 3 reels right now. I'm going to write down ideas if they inspire me, and then I'm going to move on with my day, You know what I did realize the other day is I didn't realize that doom scrolling was actually ruining my relationships. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, I have a very, I have a pattern of ignoring red flags in my romantic relationships, okay? And I was kind of reflecting on it, and I was like, now that they're over, I look back and they're so obvious. I'm like, wait, was I walking around with like a blindfold on? And then I started to think, I'm like, I think because we're so used to zoning out and looking for the next thing, even it parallels and shows up in our relationships. Like in my relationship, I'm like, there's a red flag, but let's move on to the next thing. I'm not paying attention to it. Like attention is not staying long enough to be able to be valuable and actually give you insight. You're just going next. And then I realized recently, I was like, oh my God, I honestly think I've trained myself to ignore really important things in life.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Because like now that I've just gone through a breakup, I'm looking back and I'm like, it was all so obvious. Where was I?
I don't think you're alone in we've trained ourselves into a state of distraction. I always reflect back on, what is it now, 13 or so years ago when I was doing my final exams at school, and how I would sit there for hours writing my essays, reading over my notes. Now, even if I do work or I'm journaling or something, I have that urge to check my phone. Like that wasn't even there 13 years ago. So the journey from when I finished high school to now, in terms of the role the phone plays, the way the apps have evolved, the way they play a role in our life, like it is something to definitely stop and think about. Now, for someone like you, because I know you very well, I know your personality, if you don't mind me saying, you have an addictive personality, a lot like my husband. So I want to know for you, how are you putting up safeguards to make sure that, because basically the phone and scrolling, right, has almost been like a Band-Aid or a moment of distraction away from whatever you're not wanting to sit with, or just space and time with yourself. How are you making sure that whatever you're replacing that with is not also playing the same role?
Erika, that's an amazing question. And the answer to that is the same answer I had to how I deal with my ADHD. Because you can go every single day of your life and be like, I have ADHD and this is why I am like this. Oh, Erika, I lost the keys. Sorry. Oh, I came to yours late because of my ADHD. I've been there. We all make excuses. But the answer is you just make different choices, and you make healthier choices, because your brain is going to try to convince you to get on your phone. Your brain's going to try to convince you, the stories your brain will tell you are
Tell me
amazing.
The most interesting one, because it gets so creative.
It gets so creative. Good. I mean, I thought there was one, I was like, what if my friends worry about me? Oh, okay. Well, what if my manager says that we got a job offer, but they clicked on my page, the page didn't show up? Oh my God, I'm losing money. What if I'm missing out on these important things that I have written down I need to do, and then they go to the bottom of my feed? Or what if I get shadow banned for deactivating my account? There was like a list of things. They were all lies, right? Because what really does matter? I mean, my real friends are celebrating that I'm off of social media. So it's making choices. As soon as that thought comes, it's like, I'm actually going to make a choice right now to counter that thought. My choice, easiest one, is breath work. Like honestly, sometimes just take a deep breath. It works with ADHD as well, because we're constantly in forward motion anyway, social media or not. And we're constantly feeling like we want to do a million things, even if we don't want to do a million things. So take a very deep, potent breath. What a beautiful thing that we don't even do. When was the last time you actually sat there and did a breath work? It's beautiful. It brings me straight back, and it's like the answers just come, and I'm like, nope, my priority is peace. My priority is peace. Then I bring myself back to the things that really matter. And the great thing about being a parent is sometimes when you're absolutely spiraling and losing your shit, you can look at that little human and you go, wait, there's my purpose. And sometimes I'm like, I want my daughter to watch me live my life, not narrate it. not constantly on my phone filming things, you know? And even when she does something cute, I try not to just constantly take videos of it now. I'm like, let me just enjoy this for a little bit. Just these tiny micro choices really make a difference. And you have to really, really stick with it. I've had to really stick with it. The first few days, I genuinely felt like an addict. I felt like I'm losing. Like, what am I losing? I feel like I'm running.
It is an addiction.
Yeah, I feel like I'm losing a race. Have I been in a race and I didn't even know? And you just bring it straight back with things that actually matter. I also think it's great to be self-aware, but it's not just being self-aware. It's actually changing the behaviors. Because just being self-aware and knowing what's wrong or having a PhD in your trauma and your bad patterns and bad habits means nothing.
It's step one.
Yeah, that's it. Otherwise, you're just like in this like decorated prison cell. You're like, oh, but it's decorated. But I'm here. You got to change your behaviors. And it has to start with little tiny things. I do think breath has been better than journaling for me. I have caught myself lying to myself in a journal. Like I'm writing down and I'm like, I feel like this. And I'm like, wait, no, actually I feel worse than this. But my brain is telling me that it's not so bad. So now I'm like, let me just breathe for 5 minutes, 10 minutes and go back to, okay, wait, I'm sitting with grief today. I'm really sad. My best friend's leaving for a month. My daughter's not here for a month. This really hurts. Let me process this for a second. Sorry, that was a really long answer, but
No, that's why we're on a podcast. There is something very beautiful about giving yourself space, which is what I've been struggling with. It's this constant distraction. And I mean, I'm at a little bit of a different phase where my daughter's almost 1, which is so crazy to me. And I'm kind of landing, right? I'm landing being a mum of a toddler. She's a full-blown toddler now. And really trying to understand how to prioritize, how to do things. And what I've realized is I don't have a lot of mental space at the moment. 1, because my time is just constantly taken up by this little human who needs so much of me, which is beautiful. And it's, I love that that's a part of my purpose. Then when I have time left over, it's for the podcast. But thirdly, any other time outside of that, I was distracting myself. We've trained ourselves into this, right? And so giving yourself that space is very important before you start making decisions and trying to go in and fix and DIY your life, because the space you do that from, the space you create from has to be intentional, and it's very important to do that. I was telling you the other day, we got home from our trip and my husband was kind of like trying to like suss me out, like, what are you manifesting? What are you working on? And for the first time ever, I was like, I actually don't feel grounded enough to manifest right now. I don't want to manifest. I don't want to dream big from this place where I feel really scattered in my mind. I know what I'm doing. I know what, I'm grateful for in my life, but I just feel like I'm not really tuned in with myself. And that's because I haven't been creating that space. So what I want to ask you, because we were talking about this the other night, practically in your day right now, you've wiped out social media. You've spoken a little bit about the breath work, but like practically in your day, what does creating space feel like to you?
Before I answer that question, Erika, what you just said is every mom in the world right now is relating to that. However, there's something, since my daughter is 5, so I've been through this.
Pass on the
and
wisdom.
Different ones. Yeah, and there's something that's so important there that we need to talk about, which is we have this attachment to like, you are one of the most productive people I've ever met in my life. Okay, so now you have this baby. And so, of course, things are going to be thrown off course, right? You have to fall in love with the scatteredness. You have to embrace the transformation. You've actually inspired me with this because I went through a complete creative rut before where I was like, I literally have no ideas. This makes no sense. I literally felt like I have no ideas. Like, I can't create. What am I doing? I paused my podcast, which is like literally the one thing you should never do. You need consistency. You can't just like put things on the shelf, right? You can't just pause. No, you can. You can. I paused and I embraced the scatteredness. It felt chaotic. It felt messy. I felt unsure. I was like, who am I right now? I'm trying to give parts of myself to Callie, my daughter, but then I also know I need to give parts of myself to my business. I don't know how to make that split, so I'm going to do the most radical thing ever that you can do, which is nothing. Sometimes you honestly have to just do nothing and come back to yourself and then say, oh my God, I'm an amazing mom. You are. Look at this beautiful angel that is like literally the most incredible child. And you have an amazing podcast and you're doing a million things. And somehow you get time to like cook and make bread. I'm like, how are you doing this? And still there's that pressure. But I think it's important to just really embrace those times, the transformations, the ones that do feel a little bit unsettled and like things are like, I don't think we're supposed to be constantly manifesting and constantly productive and constantly like in forward motion, killing it. No, I think that the ugly is good.
Yeah, these moments of pause and reset are important to recheck in, because often we think we want something and then life happens and we grow and we learn things and we're like, actually, do I actually want that? Is that what I thought I wanted? And, you know, the dial starts to shift a little bit, and so you're able to reconnect with yourself and then pivot, you know, and that's what I'm learning, that because for most of my life I have been in this aggressive forward motion where I've been done very well at school, done very well at uni, done very well at my job, started a podcast, it's done very well. And it's kind of like, no, if I reflect, there have definitely been seasons, and, you know, I wanted to have this conversation to get honest about the messy middle, because there are definitely moments in life where it almost feels like life's pulling you back a bit. It's like, just sit down for a minute, just sit down, relax, just think about things. And one thing we spoke about the other day was like, there is no rush. I'm constantly feeling like, and I definitely, I'm not blaming social media, but it definitely feels like that's a contributor for me personally, where you look at what someone else is doing. And you constantly compare and you'll be like, oh, why haven't I done that yet? Like you said, we add to the to-do list, we add to the pressure. And it's like, there's actually no deadline for building your life. There's no deadline for getting to know yourself. And once you actually remove that thought out of your head, you're like, wow, I'm actually just, there's so much space. Like it's like a sigh of relief. Like I'm actually just figuring this out as I go. And the figuring out is what we're all doing.
Yeah.
And this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's actually not fun too. Like sometimes it does feel like you're crying and you're unsure. And, but to actually make room for that. Like I feel like one way people always talk about it is like, get comfortable with the discomfort. For me, like that's never landed. For me, it's more about just make space for it. Like it is welcome. It's a part of life. Life is not always this forward moving progression and like achieving things and like doing, even though we feel like those are the moments we remember and we cling on to. Like the truth is the other side of it, the grief, the anxiety, the uncertainty, the stagnation, right? The moments where you feel like you have no ideas and you're clinging on to anything that comes in. Like I felt that recently too. That is all a part of the journey, and you need to make space for it all, which is why detoxing or being very, very critical with your consumption of social media and creating that space in your day to check in is important. Because as I've learned through a lot of therapy, and as I'm sure you have too, like these things get stored in the body. And if you don't process something at the time, you're going to have to process it later in life, and it builds and may become like a limiting belief, right? Because then it's stored and you continue to build on it.
Yeah.
All of this to say that like space for me right now looks like, and you said it the other day and I was like, okay, I'm not the only crazy one, literally sitting on the couch and just, that's it. Just looking around, dimming the lights, like just actually being with myself, being bored, right? It's actually not boring. It's actually very lovely.
There's a lot that comes with it too. There's
so
a lot
lovely
of
to just sit there.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. If you just enjoy what comes up, enjoy it. It sucks sometimes, but I don't know like how I enjoy it is, for example, I'm like, I'm going to sit here right now and I'm just reflecting and I'm hearing, I'm observing, I'm feeling a lot of things. The things that come up are amazing. And that's where the work is, right? And instead of looking at anything else, you're just thinking, okay, I feel a little bit of anxiety from this thing. That relationship left me with a little bit of this. Let me just feel this now. Let me do another breath. Like who's doing that every day? We need to have that as a like a vital part of the day. And you were saying, what does my day look like? I'm actually now reminding myself, if I woke up today, because I'm still obviously recording and I'm still working on my podcast, but if I woke up today and I accomplished nothing except for just be Callie's mom and just be me, I'm happy. And I didn't know that. I really was, my self-worth was definitely attached to what outcomes, what output I was putting out. And then I'm like, you know what? If I accomplish nothing today and actually my body doesn't want to move, my body doesn't want to do much today, let's call this day a me day. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read. And the thing is, I'm not saying people should do this forever and disconnect from their work. I'm saying it's a vital part of getting to a place where you can genuinely be present with all of the noise and the distractions around you. That's how you become powerful enough to fight it. That's how you become powerful enough to have the self-discipline to go, I am not going to scroll on my phone for 2 hours, because you've already dealt with the hard feelings. You already know you're not scared of being with yourself. That's the silent room is actually not scary anymore. It doesn't silence doesn't feel like punishment anymore. It feels like, oh, this is great. It's my time to reflect on the good and the bad things. Some feelings are going to be uncomfortable. That's where the work is. I think we really do run away. I mean, I used to do this. I was an artist at running away from my feelings. Really. Like even after my divorce, I was like, wow, I'm dealing with this very well. I'm actually really strong. I'm such a strong person, you know? But that was a lie I was telling myself. What I was doing was I was booking back-to-back trips. I was jumping out of a plane 12 times a day, where by the time I went back home, my skin was buzzing from the high altitude pressure. And my blood was shaking because I've been in the sky for so long. It's like this really weird feeling after you've done so many jumps. And I'm like, of course I don't have any time to think about my divorce. And now it's been 3 years, and genuinely, Erika, it's only now that I've actually had the time to sit and be like, wow, that was a journey. And I need to sit down with it now, and I need to process it. It took a while.
Yeah. Like it's always a journey, right? Like I feel like there are phases of emotions, and they vary in terms of their intensity, and people go through different experiences, but creating that space for sure, whether it's on your own or with like, you know, a professional who can support you through it is so important. One thing I had to deal with, which I don't know if you felt this or not, when I started to create that space, because for me, just to kind of give a little bit of context as to why I started doing that, I genuinely felt like the only way I can describe it is I have no space in my mind. It was like I would sit down and it was just to do items, like what I haven't done. I was feeling horrible about myself. And as someone who I would say has quite a good self-esteem, I feel quite confident in myself and what I'm doing. It was very jarring for me to almost not even know where I was. I was like, okay, I need to create some space. But what I dealt with when I would just literally sit there was, okay, what is the purpose of this? What's the agenda? Like, what am I trying to do? Like my productive brain kicked in, and it was like trying to figure out the purpose of what I was doing and like what the outcome was. And like, okay, I got this thought, what am I going to do with it? And I just noticed myself over-engineering the experience, which was not the point of it at all. Like the point of sitting there and doing nothing is just to be curious and observe. Like it doesn't really matter. Like I feel like sometimes when you journal, it's like, okay, I want to get things out of my mind. When you meditate, you want to feel a certain way. Like I understand those things create an impact in us physically, but doing them should not have an outcome. It should just be for the enjoyment of doing it, right?
Yeah, and being present is not being in the future or in the past. So when you're sitting down and you're thinking, I need to do this, I have so much to do. You're in the future. You're thinking, okay, now I'm future planning. And when you journal, to be honest, sometimes when you journal, you're kind of also talking about the past. Being present right then and there is just being there with yourself. There are no thoughts about the future or the past. That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
And then that's where the healing is, because that's where you get the most uncomfortable first and then comfortable with yourself. It's uncomfortable at first because we just never do that anymore.
Yeah.
And it is uncomfortable. You know, you do feel a lot of things that come up. But every time you're thinking about, Erika, every time you think, okay, what do I got to do? I just think I'm future focused right now. And that's the opposite of my goal right now. My goal right now is to be present. Let me come back.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes my therapist used to tell me to do this. Before I had a baby, she told me to do this with a coffee cup. And it sounded so mundane and stupid. By the way, I was a person who I would hate when someone would tell me to go take a walk. I was like, can people just stop telling me to take a walk? I'm so over this. And now I like love to go for a walk because I'm like, I get it. You're going to go for a walk. But it's like just having a cup of coffee in your hand, feeling the heat, watching, you know, the condensation, taking time to actually literally experience that coffee cup. Okay. I did it yesterday with your daughter. I was watching Mila last night and I was like, I'm just going to stare at her little curls. Like no joke. This has become now a practice because I do it so much.
It's so sweet.
She's sitting on my lap and I'm just watching her little curls in her little eyes. and then her soft skin and her little fingers touching my fingers. And then we had this little moment. And that's actually brought me to a place where I'm like, I actually want the world to be more quiet now. So I grabbed the remote and I turned off the music. And I was like, I'm just having a moment with Mila now. And I do that with Callie too. But Callie's 5, so she doesn't stop talking. so it's a little harder. But it's so medicinal,
Yeah.
you know?
I think there's a part of this, which I am realizing now I felt, I don't know if people listening can relate, where it's like actually feeling like you're worthy of that space and time, because there's a layer here, which for me is like, my value is in what I do. And I've always been that, like literally everything you rattled off before, it's like a badge of honor I wear. Like, and I know that about myself. I know I get off on like, I do everything and like, I've got this going and that going. And like, I always looked at my mum as like this woman who does everything. And I feel like I've really carried that as like, that's how I want to be perceived. The problem with, look, it's a beautiful trait because it's allowed me to create a lot in my life and be very organized and disciplined and, you know, have focus. But the negative side of that, which are things I'm starting to unravel now, is I actually don't think I have much worth if I'm just sitting there being. And one of my friends was on this podcast. She's a psychologist, a beautiful psychologist in Australia. And she said to me, we're human beings, not human doings. And I've really been sitting with that because I was like, for me to just be and just exist, like I actually don't feel like that's enough. You know, so I'm really trying to, when I create this space where I'm just sitting on the couch or I am just, it's not even about being present in what I'm doing. It's actually just taking that time out to just be in whatever moment I choose. Like it's actually learning to give myself the permission that that is enough, you know, and that is something I'm honestly working through, but it's that permission slip to be like, no, you can do this. And it doesn't need to have an outcome and it doesn't need to have an agenda. And it's so important to recharge and reground you. And I'm really trying to learn that at the moment.
And the thing is, you'll still be successful. You'll still be Erika. You'll still be an incredible mom. You'll still be a great wife. You'll still be all these things. But it's just that the weight of what you're attached to, which is the outcomes, is so heavy for you. It's like a bowling ball right there. That's why you feel like you have no more space. It's because you have a whole line of big, huge bowling balls that are just heavy. They're heavy, right? They're weighing you down. I must do this. I must do this. So is there a way to just kind of lighten things up and just be like, do you know what? I'm going to dedicate it. Start with like 1 day or 2 days in the week where you dedicate it to literally being like, I am doing nothing but existing as a human being. My human experience today is literally to just be here with Mila and do the most mundane things, like scratching the flamingo on her book and enjoying that, like that little moment there, that micro moment. Honestly, you saw me do this. I took a long break from my podcast and you actually gave me amazing advice. You're like, you know what? If you're not in the mental space right now to produce, then maybe just don't produce. And you were right. I just took time and I gave myself grace. I was like, look, I'm just not going to accomplish much this month. And it could be even a year. Sometimes honestly, you have to find a way to just be like, I need to eject. I need to unplug and I need to just come back. And again, this is a practice in the beginning that you have to do in order to become stronger later on. But you can't just do it with, I trust myself. I just won't go on social media as much as I do before, and that's it. I do think a detox is very important. Really paying attention to the little moments, like as if you're an author and you're about to write the most detailed thing ever about when your daughter held your hand. You know, the way her skin feels, her smell, everything. Focus on those, and that really has helped me. Yeah.
And a huge thing that I want to pull out for everyone listening from what you just said, and we spoke about it the other night, is like when you realize doing all this doesn't actually delay or slow anything down, number one. Number two, there's no deadline to your life. It actually just gives you for me anyway, it just feels like such a relief where I'm like, it's not about what I'm doing. It's about how I'm doing it and how I feel. And I know that paying attention to that and being more intentional and grounded, even if it feels like in my head, right? Like no one listening to this show or watching this show is going to know if I've taken 3 steps back mentally to reset and move forward. But they might feel the benefits of that in the way I show up. No one's going to know, right? So it's all about doing it for yourself and realizing that like there is no deadline to your life, and
Yeah.
there's no this stuff doesn't take away, you know.
If the root of it is how you saw your mom, maybe as a kid, I don't know if you've ever done this, but as a kid you looked at your mom and you saw how busy she was, and you put that in your head, she's busy, that's why she's successful, that's why she's, you know, taking care of all four of us and everything. Maybe go back and actually remember other things other than her being busy. Try to find details. Yeah, try to find details that didn't have any attachment to the outcomes or the work or the productivity that she was doing on a day-to-day basis, and find other things, because then at least you will understand that the value isn't there. The value isn't like, oh, that time where she spent that time with me, we didn't talk about work, she didn't talk about work, she was genuinely, intentionally there with me. I'm going to focus on those, on those moments. And that really kind of helps, because we do kind of watch our caregivers and we go, well, this is where it is. This is what's going to be my value. It's like the more output, the more things I'm doing, that means that's where I'm going to be valuable. That's where I'll be enough. And that's what it carries on.
Yeah. And for both you and I who have daughters, and I mean kids in general, it's the most beautiful mirror to really like motivate us to really work on this stuff, right? And I know that it's a lifelong journey, but we want to, I guess, work on this for ourselves, because then that makes us more present for our girls, which is what they're going to remember. And I don't want my girl growing up thinking that what she does is her value. And so it's been very ironic for me to really take that and go, okay, well, wow, that's how I view myself. This is something I need space for and to think about. I want to ask you to do something.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you open your phone? And can you open up the voice recorder app?
Okay. This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would like you to just record me, just for me, right?
Yeah.
A message. Next time I feel like I'm just putting all that pressure on myself and I'm spiraling thinking I haven't done enough and I feel so guilty and I feel so overwhelmed. Like, what would you voice note me as a message? Just press record and record it.
Erika, you are more than enough. Not from what you do, not from what you show, not from your hard work, just because you are you. And you are loved, you are light, you are here to experience this beautiful, pure human experience, and not to just show the world your hard work. That is not where your worth is. I love you no matter how hard you worked. And you're an incredible mother. I hope you take time to just give yourself lots of appreciation for what you already do, because it is already a miracle. And come back to yourself whenever you can.
I love you and thank you for that.
I love you.
But I want to tell you
Yeah.
the reason I got you to record that
Yeah.
is because I want you to play it back for yourself now.
Aw.
Because it's so easy to extend those words to friends and share those kind words and that understanding and that grace, but to give it to ourselves is not the easiest thing.
It's very true.
So that's
Thank you
both
for
of
this
us.
gift.
But it is for
Yeah.
you, because it's like I said, if I was to sit there and be like, I'm going to record something for myself, it doesn't feel like it flows. Like that's something we have to learn to do. But for people listening, if you actually think about the way you coach your friends, you show up for them, whether it be your sisters, your cousins, your parents, whoever, those words you extend to them, like everything you just said, trust me, when you play that back, minus where you said my name at the beginning, like to play it back to yourself and extend those beautiful words to yourself, that's a gift for you, because you're always showing up for me, and I want you to also be able to show up for you in the same way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That really is a gift. And it's so true. We do sometimes forget. So it's so important to actually, that's a great practice. Actually, everybody should do that. They should just visualize that they're talking to their best friend. And because we totally forget to take care of ourselves. I really do think so.
Yeah. And the reason I said the voice note is because that's something that feels so authentic to us. Like I'm literally just dropping a voice note. So it's a good exercise for people to do. And everyone's got a recorder app on their phone to just get in the zone, you know.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something, actually. You know, I've been thinking about how so many of us don't get to have adult relationships with our grandparents, right? A lot of us actually didn't even know them, or maybe we knew them from a young age, but a lot of us actually don't get that opportunity to know them as adults. And I always reflect on the different things I would want to know and the curiosities I would have. So I wanted to ask you, if you had your grandparents here in front of you, what's the one thing you would really want to ask them?
Oh my God. I love this question.
Because when you think about it, they're not our parents, right? They didn't raise us. We don't really know much about them at our age, but they play such a key role in who we are, our lineage, the reason we exist. So like, what would you actually want to ask them?
Yeah, I think I would just want to get like a sentence out of them of like, how would you describe your life? What was it the biggest lesson that you've learned? I want to know, is it that, what's the biggest thing that's held you back? Is it the stories you told yourself? Is it the people you made friends with? Was it the choices you made? Are you proud of every single moment? Is there anything that you would change? When people have been around for so long, they always tend to have this one thing they tell you. Like they say something like, the most important thing you'll do in life is choose the right partner. Like there's always that crazy sentence. You're like, of your entire 80 years of your life, that is the most important thing you're sharing with me. That's beautiful because it takes us, we literally try to figure out life every single day of our lives. And then we're 60 and 70 and then we're like, shit, we're here now. And so I think I would just ask them so many questions, honestly. I never had the privilege of having grandparents around. I didn't know them, but I would wonder what their advice would be. Was it their relationships that they learned the most from? Was it the job that they had, that their friendships? What was it that they learned? Was it the stories they told themselves every day that one day they woke up and they're like, wow, I've been telling myself a completely wrong narrative about my life. And then there was an epiphany, it's things that I'm 35, but I've now realized these like huge things. If Callie asked me tomorrow, Mom, tell me something about life, I'd be like, the power of the way you narrate your life is unprecedented. If you walk around life saying, I was dumped and I was abandoned, I have a lot of trauma, you're literally going to change the next 10, 20 years of your life just by those words. They're so, so powerful.
Yeah.
So I would just say, be careful for that narrative that you walk around with. Be careful what you put out into the universe. So I bet my grandparents would have a lot to share.
Yeah, and it'd be so interesting. They say like there are things that it's like generational traumas or beliefs or emotions. Like it would be so interesting to feel or see or understand like what actual similarities in life experience. My question to them would be, what was your biggest dream? Like what was the thing you most wanted to achieve in life? What was the most exciting thing you wanted? Because I always find like how success and the definition of success and what really makes people fulfilled, how that varies from person to person and intergenerationally, I think would be super interesting as times have changed so much. Although I find it interesting because my grandparents, they migrated from, they moved countries, Italy to Australia, and my other grandparents, Italy to Argentina. And so, now I've moved from like Australia to Dubai, and it's kind of like moving countries, starting a new life. Like they kind of went through a similar pattern, but I would love to hear about what was the actual ambition in doing that. I know it was for different reasons, like they're leaving war and creating a better life, but what dreams did they have for themselves? I think would be so interesting to know, perhaps in a future world where we can time travel and ask those questions, right?
That's interesting that you would choose the success angle. A lot of people do say, did you hear the most common thing that people say on their deathbed is, I just wish, they never say, I wish I worked more. They always say, I wish I was with my loved ones more. It's really interesting because I wonder how you define success, the difference between defining success at 30 and 40 and 50, and then at the very end, how different it probably is.
That's what I mean. Like on reflection, what was their biggest dream? What was the thing that made them the most fulfilled? It doesn't have to be in like a work sense, but just in general, like where did they come to where they're like, that was the best thing I did?
Yeah, I love this question. Such a good question.
Would be so interesting.
Yeah, very reflective. I love it.
Naila, it's always such a beautiful experience chatting with you, and I'm so grateful I get to do it so much off air, but this just came to me as a conversation. I feel like for everybody listening, it was one I just needed to put out there. I wanted to put out there. I wanted to have to kind of like mark this moment in time where we're both really regrounding and trying to detach from noise that we've been trained into, noise that we have maybe not been so disciplined with, and really just learning to navigate not only for ourselves but for our girls. So thank you for coming on and always being raw and vulnerable like you always are.
Thank you so much, Erika.
I appreciate
I love
you so
with all
much.
my heart. I'm so glad that your podcast brought us together. You genuinely are my best friend. And our conversations are always transformational. Like we just transformative. And you are so inspiring to me. And I see how hard you work and I see what you're doing in life. And it honestly makes me kind of have higher standards for myself as well. And I think it brings me back to how can I be the best version of myself in every way, and emotionally and in work. So keep inspiring us. I love what you're doing. Good
Thank
job
you.
with the podcast. Thanks for
you.
having me on again.
Thank you so much, love. Appreciate you always. And of course, guys, if you've enjoyed today's episode and you're not already subscribed, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's the free way you can support the channel and you can help me reach my goal of 1 million subscribers. And if you want to see Naila back on the show, if you have any questions for her, I'm going to also link to her podcast. Definitely check it out. She's got some incredible people coming on, and her take on conversations and what she's interested in really, really intrigues me. So I know for sure you guys will love it. I'll see you guys in the next episode, and thank you so much.